Hello, and welcome to EB5 Investment Reports Dialogue Series. I'm Aimee Rios. Today's speaker is Tom Freeman, Commissioner of Foreign Trade for Riverside County, California. Today, Tom will be discussing the vitality of the EB5 program to the region, the red tape that may hinder investment opportunities, and how government agencies can support regional centers in their efforts on attracting foreign investment. But before we begin, a word from our sponsor.
The following presentation was made possible by the Alltech Media Group, a Southern California multimedia company providing exponential branding and marketing services to all their clients. The Alltech Media Group understands the value of the 3W strategy, providing their clients proven, trackable results. Let us make it easy for you to grow your business. Visit alltechmedia.com.
Now, as Commissioner of Foreign Trade, can you tell our viewers what your responsibilities are and how it pertains to the EB5 program?
Well, first of all, our program began about 4 years ago, and the Board of Supervisors, looking at the economic trough we were in, was looking for ways to provide capital to businesses. And we actually found out from the chief economist of the European Union, Dr. Gaspar Frontini, that an EB5 program existed in the United States. Odd that we'd have to get told this by somebody who's from Spain, who works in Brussels, but he said we should be utilizing this program. And that's exactly what we did. The Board of Supervisors decided that they looked at the EB5 program, thought it really fit the bill to help our local businesses and helped us create jobs. And remember, we had an unemployment rate 4 years ago as high as the state of Michigan. So it was awful. And it was at that time we said we embrace EB5 as an official investment policy of the Riverside County Board of Supervisors and began working with EB5 applicants, EB5 regional center developers, actually funded EB5 centers, and we still today maintain a very high pace. And EB5 has been a real savior and a lifesaver for our business community because, as you know, they help create and save jobs. And this has been a blessing for us to have in Riverside County. And the credit for that goes to, first, the people who create the EB5 regional centers. And second, as far as I see, the people who invest. And third, the Board of Supervisors for really taking a leadership position that not one county of 3,011 in the United States or of any city took, and that is EB5 is something we embrace. It is a great tool, and that got us going. And the Office of Foreign Trade, of course, looks at two things. We want to see our agricultural products and our manufactured products in Riverside County sold overseas. We also want international investment, and what better way to seek international investment and create new jobs than to ask successful entrepreneurs from other countries to invest in Riverside County, California, California's fourth largest county. And in a few years, we will be the second largest county in California in population. So we have an explosive situation on population. We've had some tough times. We're putting those behind us, and EB5 has been the real bridge in our economic and job creation tools in the private sector and also with local governments.
Now, you were here about a year ago, and then I believe there was 250 regional centers. Now there's almost 400, 58 of which are in your jurisdiction. Now, what do you make of this, and what kind of impact has it had on the Riverside County?
It's had a tremendous positive impact on Riverside County in many ways. First, the job creation simultaneously with that investment. And third, the international reputation that the county has gained by having a policy in which we welcome EB5 investors. We see many guests each month from China. We've established relationships at the Board of Supervisors level and at my office with Chinese government officials and business owners in an effort to bring investment here. And it is working. It does create the jobs. It does save the jobs. It is not the magic bullet, and it doesn't work in every scenario, but if you're a business owner and you need capital, And thanks to legislation we refer to in the business as Dodd-Frank, it made it a little tougher on our banks that want to help you to help you. And essentially works like this in today's banking industry. If you need a loan, they can't give you one. If you don't need it, they can give it to you. It's really tough to get financing. And so EB5 comes along at a right time. And the other piece of EB5, which you will see continue to emerge successfully, is that now that California has struck down the redevelopment law, you will see cities, counties, the state, special district like colleges and community colleges and those water districts and library districts all looking for a place to find money. And investors want to invest in places where they know through EB5 regional centers they'll get their money back. And government is a great place to invest in a project with, because our debt, while it could be restructured in a bankruptcy, such as that in Stockton, California, or maybe in the state of Michigan or the city of Detroit, but you still have to pay your debt. So this is one more secure way of investing, and we believe we'll have $100 million in EB5 investment alone in government projects in this next 12-month period.
Now, what types of projects are, getting attention in Riverside County? You'd mentioned some government agencies wanting to, or using EB5 possibly as a way to fund some projects, but what are the types of projects? Are they hotels, senior living facilities? What projects can we see in Riverside County that are using EB5?
You're very good. Of course, you know that hotels are one of the areas that make a good investment because they create a lot of jobs, full-time jobs. Resorts, they do the same thing. Businesses that manufacture, these are doing well. We're seeing now wineries being purchased by international investors. So it's pretty exciting to see just about every aspect of our economy is benefiting from EB5 investment. And remember, if you're considering EB5 investment anywhere in the United States, Riverside County is what we might refer to as a blue light special. And many people who are old like me will remember the Kmart stores, and you'd go in and there'd be a little blue light flashing and there'd be a discount. Well, by investing in Riverside County through the EB5 Regional Center program, you only have to invest $500,000. Now, only $500,000. $500,000 is still a lot of money to me, but it's half the investment if you might go someplace else. The other would be $1 million. So if I could invest $500,000 in a solid business, get my money back, make a nice return, and get a visa, I'd be very interested in that program, and that's why I believe that so many of the EB5 centers have located here in Riverside County. Our $500,000 investment rate is driven by the fact that unemployment is high. And as long as the unemployment rate stays within 150% of the national average, EB5 investors in Riverside County will invest $500,000 as opposed to $1 million. You get the same visa, you get the same rights, the same privileges, and you're in business for half the price. Now, I spent a few years, I had a real job in a business, and if I could get it for half price and it was the same thing, I'd want that product. And that's made us successful. The board has positioned itself well. The 28 cities, thanks to this program and education we're doing, we have got the cities to understand what this is. It isn't a flying saucer, and it is not a pill, but it is a solution in some cases to finding financing for business or government projects.
Now, Tom, we do have a question from one of our viewers who wants to know, how should EDA directors move forward with EB5?
If I were an EDA director, and depending where you are, naturally in Riverside County, we like to work with all our cities who are economic development officials, their mayors, their city councils, their city manager. If you're willing to do that, come see us. Give us a call at 951-955-9812. If you are in another area and you're interested in EB5, you're going to have to get involved, do your homework, and I would recommend you do what we did. We looked at it, it made sense, we took it to the Board of Supervisors and said we think this should be policy. They implemented it. Now then the education component comes along. Find out who your regional center operators are and begin your meetings with them, start working with them, developing the relationship, and support them, and this is the key, when they're trying to expand that EB5 regional center, they're trying to seek investors, support them.
How do you support them?
I think the best support you can provide now, in our program, we're a little bit ahead of some others. So we support you if you own an EB5 regional center or you're trying to establish one by working with the U.S. Department of Homeland Security to help you process your application for being a regional center or process your investor applications. And those are key things. Now, we've sort of ramped our activities up. We've been very worried lately that on the federal level, the EB5 program is beginning to falter. And it falters as these two applications, one to be a regional center and one to give the background check to our investors, have bogged down. When we started this program, it was only 6 months. And believe me, in business, 6 months is eternity. Because your money's sitting there, you're trying to do something, it costs money to make money. So that was a drag. Now that process is ballooned to 18 months. We think this is unacceptable. We've talked to our entire congressional delegation, Congressman Duncan Hunter to the south, Mark Takano, Ken Calvert, and Congressman Ruiz, and we've talked to our two senators, Foxer and Feinstein, and let them know that we're really concerned. On top of that, we have just voted at the Board of Supervisors to ask the United States Congress Judiciary Committee to launch hearings into these lengthy delays. We see them as inexcusable, and we also see reports of cherry-picking friendlies above those that are in the breach and trying to go through the process using the rules. These are very irritating. And having been a government employee for a long, long time, it's embarrassing that somebody else in the bureaucracy is holding up progress, holding up investment, and holding up the most important piece is jobs. We don't get these jobs. We got families we don't feed. These folks that have the EB5 regional centers, they need our help. And we need to say thank you to them for investing in our county, wherever it is, or city, or state. They need to be thanked for selecting us as a place to do investment.
Now, Tom, we have another viewer question who wants to know, can the funds be used for infrastructure for a business park, and what would be the best way to pay back?
Well, yes, the funds can be used many ways, and the key is when the regional center is being established, what did the economic analysis of the regional center say it was going to do? Now, you talked about two things when you asked the question, hotels, and you talked about government projects. Well, if the EB5 regional center operator that you're talking with has those types of projects within his or her regional center, then you're fine. If not, rather than waiting through what now you see is an 18-month process to be amended, you may have to select another regional center who specifically mentioned that he wants to work on building retail centers, or he wants to work on parks, or she wants to work on sewer, water, and what used to be redevelopment type projects. So there is a regional center out there that meets just about every single need, and believe me, the people that put these together, the men and women that did this, are very intelligent. They're looking at all possible angles to make cash flow and to be attractive to the international investor, and that is also key. Is what we're asking people to invest in attractive to me? Do I feel safe in making that investment with you, Renee, if it's your regional center? And if the answer to that is yes, then of course you're going to get the money. And this industry produces a lot of revenue. The person that goes around and finds these investors around the world, and we'll use China as a great example, or Vietnam, a person who finds that $500,000 investor takes as much as $80,000 for his or her compensation per investor. So you and I, maybe we should quit this and go look in China or Vietnam or wherever else, because it's a very lucrative field. But it's hard to put a project together that makes sense, that gives people the confidence, and they're looking also for the successful regional centers. And I can't go into names here, but we have many successful regional centers here that we trust, who have done what they said they will do. So yes, you can build different types of projects. It's all in the way these things are structured and set up.
Now, you just mentioned some of the high broker-dealer fees, and going back to that, do you think that they should be disclosed? Do you think that they've earned it? Or do you think that it may make an investor question the integrity of a project?
Well, I won't get into the integrity of the project because the project stands on its own. If you're going to build an office building with 10 stories and you're going to put 1,000 people to work in that building, I think that speaks for itself. Now, as the fees are set, personally, I work for the government. I really don't care what the fees are because at this point we need the private sector to go out and generate this income. So should the government get in the backyard of that successful EB5 center and say, gee, your fee is too high? That is between the investor and the person running the regional center. And our board, I think, would say the same thing because all of them have a business bent. They lean towards helping business. And that's hard to do in California, but they do support business, so they probably wouldn't worry about the number, but we are concerned about failure. Failure for us isn't really an option. We want to see all the centers excel and do well and raise money, and to the extent possible, we will help them. Now, in my office, people come in all the time. In fact, before coming here, I just had a person come in asking about EB5 for a very significant project. It's an option. Then they're asking for recommendations, and you know, I can't. I give them a list of 58 names and say, I can't give you one name. But
they have to do their due diligence.
You've got to do your own homework. And that's always the key. If it sounds too good to be true, we've probably learned through our lives it is. So you have to do your homework. You have to make up your mind what's the best investment for you. But what you will see is our successful EB5 regional centers going over to those markets where we know, for instance, China. China is rich with millionaires, very successful people, and they're looking for the chance to own U.S. land or own a piece of the business. Things that they can't do in China. You know, Chinese can be very successful individuals, but you can't own land. So sometimes we see investors here that don't even care about EB5. They just want to buy dirt, and then we tell them about EB5 and they say, oh, well, I want that too. So it works as a secondary selling tool. I think it's just really important, though, that the business people regulate themselves, follow the law, regulate themselves, make as much money as they can. We don't care. More taxes are going to be paid if they're more successful, so we'll get their money one way or the other.
Now, we all know that China is a dominating market when it comes to EB5. Can you tell us about some other emerging markets?
I mentioned earlier Vietnam, and that seems to be the next area that's a hotbed for us. Also Canada. Canada, to a lesser extent, because of our immigration policies and our visa policies, due primarily to negotiations that the United States had in their NAFTA series of agreements. But Canadians are major investors in Riverside County. Chinese, although we get a lot of investment from China, the bigger countries that are creating most of the jobs through international investment are countries we would relatively think of as normal relations that we've had with them for 200 years. Germany, France, England, and then of course Japan and South Korea. Those and France, they're the major investors and job creators. So people always get a little anxious because China is still under a communist regime. And I say, yes, but they're investing here through a legal program and getting a visa, and they don't even own the business, and they're not converting the business to a Chinese business. They're hiring people that look like you and I and everybody else in this county. They're still our regular workforce. There's not been an invasion of the Chinese or the Red Menace, as they used to tell us when we were in the military. It's been fine, it's worked out well, and they've been wonderful investors. Now, Vietnam is new, and that's been a phenomenon for the last 3 years. And what we're seeing there is there's a lot of manufacturing going on. Some people are making some money, and they have lots of family members in the United States. We can go back many, many years and remember that when we fought the North Vietnamese, we were able to liberate several thousand South Vietnamese and bring them to the United States. And Riverside County is one of those areas where many of those families chose to relocate or were relocated mandatory. So there's a lot of interest there. South Korea is good for us. It's been very good for Central America, but there's just a tiny bit of wealth there in India as well.
Now we have another viewer question. Does the regional center need to be in my area of the county, of the country?
No, not necessarily. And if they're talking about for an investment, the answer to that would be no. We can take investors from all over the globe, provided they get through Homeland Security. If you're asking, does a regional center have to be where you live? No, it does not. We have many, many examples without mentioning names. The whole state of California is serviced by an EB5 regional center out of the state of Illinois, and it's probably one of the most successful ones in the country. We have another one serviced out of the state of Washington, and it's one of the most successful in the country. So you can see Regional 5 headquarters offices in different states, but they're licensed and grantee to be operating here in California and in Riverside County.
Now, Tom, I understand that the city of Corona has joined the county of Riverside in promoting trade and international investment. What are some things that the city will cooperate with on the county, and will it affect the county's EB5 efforts, and if so, how?
Well, if anything, I think it's positive. First, it's an opportunity to educate. Many folks are new to EB5 programs, and they don't quite understand them. So it's an opportunity for us to meet with the elected policymakers, the mayor, the city council, and they have been terrific. The city manager and the economic development staff. Remember, over the last 15 to 20 years, economic development staff in cities generally focused on redevelopment. So now that's gone. So Riverside County was the trailblazer in local government doing anything in foreign trade or foreign investment, because we all were waiting for the state or the federal government to help us do that. They weren't doing that, so our board decided to do it on their own. And part of that was asking cities if they wanted assistance from the county and joining together. So now we have, I think it's 11 of our 28 cities are cooperating with us, and I think this is good for the regional center concept, because that means when the regional center operator or applicant wants to establish a center, he or she can turn to us for help to establish a center and support. And the more support you have in the form of correspondence with the federal government from a local jurisdiction, whether it's the county or the city or maybe a school board or a water board or a parks district or a library district, it's better for the applicant. So I think this helps us out in the long run. It certainly elevates their game, and now they're participating in all of our activities. And you know, your program covers many of our activities, and we very much appreciate that, because it's been a blessing to get the word out not only across the United States but around the globe that in our county here in Southern California, just 60 miles east of LA, we have 5 people who run the county, the Board of Supervisors elected to do it, and they get it. And that's the most important thing for business people. When you're talking to the bureaucracy, does it get it and does it care? And our answer to that is yes on both cases.
Now, how do you feel about the move for the EB5 headquarters from California to Washington? What are your thoughts? Do you think it'll have a positive impact on the program, and will we perhaps get our petitions expedited quicker?
Well, I'm not sure that having it here was a big bonus, because while it was here, we were still bogged down in bureaucratic red tape. Now it's been transferred back to Washington, D.C., as you've mentioned, and we still haven't had any success. And we all know that moves aren't the easiest thing to deal with in our lifetime, whether it's personal or business. That can slow progress down. I'm not quite sure why they made this move. I'm hoping it's for operational efficiency. Thus far it hasn't matured, but we support the current director and would like to see him become deputy secretary. We know that he is not an obstruction. It is way down in the bureaucracy where these problems are occurring. So we'll, of course, live with his judgment to move those resources out of beautiful Orange County, where the weather's nice. The bureaucrats are going to have a wake-up call, because they're going to find out for the first time, if they haven't lived in Washington, D.C. like I have, you have things called snow days, blizzards, freezing rain, hail, sleet, and an occasional shutdown of a road or two when the president is moving around the Capitol. So it's going to be fun for them. Good luck.
Well, Tom, we need to pause now for another word from our sponsor.
The following presentation was made possible by the Alltech Media Group, a Southern California multimedia company providing exponential branding and marketing services to all their clients. The Alltech Media Group understands the value of the 3W strategy, providing their clients proven, trackable results. Let us make it easy for you to grow your business. Visit alltechmedia.com.
Where do you see the EB5 program and its impact on the Riverside County in 5 years?
Well, I'm hoping, of course, that our unemployment rate does drop. But this is a sort of a national debate now. And that debate is an 8% or a 9% unemployment rate the new norm? If it stays there, EB5 is very, very likely to be a huge player in Riverside County in our market. If those numbers were to go to 4% and the national unemployment dropped, we would have a challenge, and that is that it would not be as attractive for investors to come to our county to invest, and it might be just better for them to, say, be in Michigan. And that would cause me personal grief. So it all depends on how successful we are at rebuilding our economy and what the national unemployment figures mean to us. And I have to say that the state gave us a major coronary earlier this year when they were recalculating the unemployment figures, and our Board of Supervisors basically declared war and said, wait, don't you be rounding down numbers so that it'll look good in the newspaper, see that our unemployment is down, because if you do, we lose these investment opportunities which are delivering investors, are delivering jobs in Riverside County. And we were able to prove that Riverside County still had a relatively high unemployment rate. It's down from where it was. And that we were still we met the federal prerequisites to still be the EB5 discount investment center on the West Coast. And we want the unemployment numbers to go down, and we want as many people as we can possibly get to have new jobs, but we have to have a vital and viable EB5 program to make Riverside County successful. And it is one more tool in your arsenal if you're a business owner to have this regional center to be able to turn to get investment. And these centers now are becoming mainstream banking institutions. And what I saw 4 years ago that might have been invested in isn't. As the capital has come in, as we proved to be successful, as we proved the regional centers are doing what they say, that is, they're creating the jobs, they're creating the investment, and they're returning your money to you, we've earned an international reputation as a great place to invest, and that's thanks to those EB5 regional center operators. So if any of the regional centers that operate in Riverside County are watching or listening to this program today, Riverside County says thank you, because without you, we can't create the jobs and investment we need.
Also, if any of our viewers watching today have any questions for Tom Freeman, please send them. I do have another question. What have you to be the most successful types of projects, and is there a trend?
Well, what I have seen that have been very successful, and let's quantify success. Okay. The board wants to see jobs, but do we want to see more jobs in retail? Do we want to see more in hospitality? Do we want to see more in things like recreational activities, medicine, medical manufacturing? Okay, all of those I've talked about. We've had victories in all of those areas. Medical center, senior and adult care facilities are being built. Office buildings are being built. All these different types of activities, including hotels and resorts, it's all there right now. So each one of those areas has been successful for us because we measure success one job at a time. And so when we see 10 new jobs come in, believe me, we're happy. That's a net gain. The challenge for the government at the local level is creating a regulatory process that welcomes business. And our Board of Supervisors does that on every level. It starts at the CEO of the county in JEOR. It is pushed down by his assistant, Chief Assistant George Johnson, who then pushes it down to our boss, which is Rob Field, the Assistant CEO for the county. It sets an attitude that we want to be business friendly. And this is a tough state to be business friendly. But you know what we've done is we've created our own incentives. We created the acceptance and the cheerleading for EB5. We created foreign trade zones. We've expanding our recycle market development zones to encompass the whole county. We've got more foreign trade zones than any county in the country. So we've done what we can locally to use resources to make it more attractive to do business. And when business came to us asking for help, where it's our agricultural industry that's worth several $billion, or it's our manufacturers, we try and help, and we try and spend our money on lobbyists in Washington or Sacramento to either stop something that's going to hurt business or write a new law that helps. So the county depends on EB5. It's part of our strategy. It's very important, and we need it to succeed to see our growth continue.
Now, since you've been involved with EB5, what have been the biggest changes that you've seen? Has it been the slow processing times?
Absolutely. And that's the most frustrating, because you know we have regional centers that are up and operating or just got started, and they're out making capital calls, and they're looking for investors, and they've got them booked. And guess what? This process turns them off. If you have to wait 18 months and you have $500,000 on deposit, you're probably frustrated and you're beginning to doubt. Yeah. And this creates doubt and uncertainty. And in an investor, we don't want those. So this has been a real challenge for us. This is why we're so frustrated. We have been really well received in Washington, D.C. when we tell the story of what's going on with the regional centers. Like I said before, Congressman Hunter, Congressman Calvert, Congressman Takano, even Congressman Paul Cook, who represents San Bernardino, Inyo, and Mono counties, is on our side. So as we tell our story about the vitality and the importance of these centers, this is something that drives you nuts, because we're waiting for the jobs and the investment. And the people that own the regional centers and have really taken their life's capital and put it on the line are waiting to finish projects, and they can't finish them without the money. It is almost the same thing as banks stopping your line of credit when you're doing a construction project. And we have those centers now that we have aligned ourselves with on a policy level to say, look, hello, Washington, Earth to Washington. You're killing jobs while you're dragging your feet. Process these applications, these backgrounds, as quickly and thoroughly as possible. We don't want any mistakes or anybody moving through the system that shouldn't be. But these people are creating jobs. They're investing money here. And when they invest money in a piece of property that had nothing on it before, guess what the city and the county get? More property tax to feed the public safety system, pay for our police officers, pay for our firefighters, pay for our paramedics, pay for your roads, keep your parks open. That's why you want that investment, and that's why Washington needs to wake up and get off the backs of the regional centers, follow the rules, process these applications, and get it done. And more importantly than that, our state needs to engage as well and tell Washington that, hello, we need your help. We are still struggling. Our economy in the coastal regions is recovering nicely. But those who live like we do in the inland region and can't live in Newport Beach or in San Francisco are struggling still. And our unemployment rates are up here, coastal regions are down here. Don't confuse the inland area with the coastal region. If you'd like an example, come to the Inland Empire today and enjoy 100-degree heat. We're at the beaches, they're sweltering at 80 today.
Now also, with the processing time, it affects the investors and their families for, the possibility of their children aging out. Yeah. And that's a huge problem.
I think, if I may just say that a lot of this appeal, we have 3 great universities here in Riverside County: La Sierra, California Baptist University, and UCR. And many people want to send their children to school here. We want to help them do that, but as you mentioned, if the government doesn't hurry, the incentive to get them into U.S. schools is no longer available, because these visas are only given to kids that are up to 18. So you're right, they're timing out. Nice choice. I'm sure you watch sports if you know these great statements like timing out.
We have another viewer question. Is SDC's involvement going to help or hurt the program?
Too early to tell.
Okay.
If they speed it up, obviously they're helping. If they're slowing it down, they're not. Now, that's my perspective from trying to get investors here and getting buildings built. But if they're going to help us by some miracle regulatory process that they're going to develop, which is going to be faster, I'm all for it. Okay. But right now, we need the investment and we need the jobs. Or we need the jobs and the investment, whichever way, we need it. So if Washington would just kindly work as hard as they could to help these regional centers out, our Board of Supervisors, our state representatives, and our congressional delegation, our 2 U.S. senators would probably appreciate it, because I'm sure they're tired of hearing from Riverside County about this issue. And nobody wants to face a congressional hearing like we've requested through the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, which I think is a real reality.
When do you think that could happen? That's
up to the chairman of the committee. He's out of the great state of Virginia, the Commonwealth of Virginia. It'd be up to him if he calls those hearings, but just the fact that he's fired the bow shot that he might entertain that would really wake me up if I was a Washington appointee in the cabinet of the Obama administration. Why would we want to have a congressional hearing because we're not doing what we're supposed to do fast enough? I'd really be worried about that, because every congressman that's on that committee is going to have a story in his or her district about if they're in the minority party, they're going to say it's all wonderful, and the majority party is going to say you're terrible. So let's avoid all that and move things along and drop the hearing.
Now, you've touched on this a little bit, but what are some hurdles you face as commissioner with the EB5 program?
Right now, my biggest hurdle, and that of the Board of Supervisors and our whole county team, is the federal bureaucratic process and the slowdown. Because each day, or twice or 3 times a week when investors come in, you have 2 types. You have the one that wants to create his or her regional center, and the one that already has it. Both are impacted by the slow way of processing. Now, you look at the federal government and how it's staffed. They have so many people working for the Internal Revenue Service. And we have become accustomed to a processing time for a tax return, right? It's very simple. If you file it online and you e-file, you get a refund pretty quick. If you file it through snail mail, you still get a refund in a few months. Why can't we have the same staffing paid to a program that creates investments in this country, that creates jobs, as we do with the IRS? Give them the people at the Department of Homeland Security that they need to do this job to help business, if it's people. If it's the process itself, change the policies to make it faster. And I'm saying easier, because we want a thorough, legal process of how that money comes here and who those people are making those investments. We want to protect our country and our citizens. We're simply saying, get off the dime. And if the county did something like that and took a building permit and slowed it down from 90 days to 18 months, we would be pilloried in the local media, in the trade community, and the world would know this is a lousy place to invest. Luckily, that isn't the case here. But this is an area which is my greatest level of frustration. I know that of my superiors and the elected officials that run the county. Job one right now is get the federal government back on track and get that application processed and get an answer. Give them an answer, yes or no, and read your email and respond. If we don't answer our email, somebody will tell our superiors, our Board of Supervisors. They'll complain. Yeah. Okay, we're complaining. Hey, these people don't read their email and they don't return responses. This isn't the CIA. A simple question is, where am I at in the process? How many more months? No response. Oh, can I ask a question about this? No response. Oh, we have an ombudsman. I don't think the ombudsman picks up his phone or answers email either, because I've sent them to him. And I've never received a response. That's in 4 years. So I think I have a track record of saying we get very little courtesy granted by the Fed, Homeland Security, in this particular matter. They can be great in everything else, but in my tiny, tiny little world, EB5 regional centers and EB5 applicants are job one. And when they're unhappy and you can prove and make the case that we're not doing our job correctly, then they need to step it up and man up and get that mess cleaned up so that we can get this process going again. It's good for us. It's good for all the other counties and cities around the country that have EB-5 regional centers. And people at the elected level, at the local level, are learning of this, and for many for the first time, and they are absolutely on fire about getting a center in their area. Well, just get your center all fired up, get all the emotional energy going, and find out you're going to sit for 18 months. That's not a lot of fun.
We do have another viewer question. How can developers help push the government to move faster with the program?
Yes, I think so. I think that the developer or the owner of the regional center, they must be better organized. Originally, when these centers were first authorized, you know, they did not attract a lot of investment. They never maxed out on the federal cap of 10,000 visas a year. Now they're doing it. Now they're bumping up against it. Now they're surpassing it. Organize. You must participate in the federal legislative process. You might call that lobbying, having a political action committee, making your voices heard. Learn the name and the phone number of your local congressional representative and begin your conversation with his or her district director or field rep that's supposed to be there to help business and advocate. And don't be afraid if you're a Democrat and your representative is a Republican or vice versa. They'll help you because they want to create jobs and they want to come to that ribbon cutting. And nothing is better for one of our federal elected officials than to come home and say, hey, let me help you cut that ribbon, and the owner of that business tells the story, hey, he or she helped me with cutting the red tape in Washington, and we wouldn't have these jobs today if it wasn't for them. So get involved with the process and follow it closely and watch every bit of legislation that is produced that could hurt you or help you, and get behind it or oppose it.
We have another viewer question. Is it the USCIS or Homeland Security that is causing the problems, or both?
Well, the Office of Responsibility is USCIS, but the policy office of that agency is the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. And ultimately, I think when you bring to the appointed department head, the Secretary of Homeland Security, this constant problem, and I've seen this work in hearings before in Congress where a Homeland Security Secretary needs money. You have a member of your congressional delegation that's an appropriator. You simply have to make the appropriator want to make the ask to look into this and make this go away. And that's not simple, because an appropriator could have 50 different bills that are higher priority. You don't want to put your member in a position of being held hostage by the majority party to vote for a bad bill, or your bill's going to be dead. You need to work, as I said earlier, with your delegates. The delegates can influence Homeland Security, and I'll tell you where they're going to influence USCIS they've already done it, and that is in the confirmation process of the current director of USCIS and placed it on hold. That's a wake-up call. And anywhere you go, if you're a state appointee or a federal one and they're blocking your appointment, you got problems. And you better go and figure out, can I fix them? Or is my nomination going to have to be withdrawn because I can't fix my agency? And if you can't run USCIS, how can you be the number 2 at U.S. Department of Homeland Security? They both have ownership of these problems and both have to be worked.
Do you see other government agencies becoming involved in the EB-5 program? I
don't know, because remember when this whole program had to be reauthorized, it's about 2 years ago now, 2 sessions ago. We did a lot of groundwork using our lobby firm and a gentleman named Tom Walters and Scott McGee. Those two work for us in Washington on a full-time basis, and they had a lot of education to do with not only our members, but then talking to other members on key committees that we're going to reauthorize. And some people got bad information, and because they got it from people they trusted, they chose to side with those people. What we may see is another change coming down the line. Some of those changes could be good. Others could be bad. So we need to watch. You asked earlier, what do we have to do? Both local government and the industry must watch every piece of legislation come out and read it and review it and flag it If it's got EB5 in a sentence, you better have it flagged because they will do things to you, and you don't want an omnibus appropriation bill that's 2,700 pages long to find one sentence in there that completely changes the entire program and everybody votes for it.
Yeah.
That would really hurt the EB5 program. So stay on top of it, watch it, and let's hope that no other government regulation occurs during the process for the foreseeable future, but that's always doubtful.
I've got one more question for you, Tom. Do you think that the EB5 program will be granted permanency? It's always been renewed since its inception. Where are we going to go with this?
Well, I'd love that, but it's doubtful. And why it's doubtful is because our legislative process works in cycles. Today, the Farm Bill is up for consideration. The existing Farm Bill that's rewritten every 4 or 5 years is still in force, and we can't get a new Farm Bill. So I don't like that, but you know, that's the way our country operates. That's a democracy, that's a representative government, and that doesn't mean I like it, but our Board of Supervisors wants to see a viable program. And if it's viable by constantly reauthorizing it every 4 years, fine. If it would be permanent, that'd even be better. But it's likely that it's going to be constantly having to be reauthorized, and we will constantly have tweaks. And you have people who are not making money because of EB5. And those folks talk to legislators, and they tell them stories, and sometimes they're horror stories, which are spun up, made bigger than they really are, and then we have a member introducing a single sentence that changes the whole character of EB5. So we must be diligent, we must watch this every day, and part of my responsibility is to track that. And the beautiful thing about those diligent EB5 regional center operators is they will occasionally forward me things that I missed. And I do miss things. I'm not perfect. If I was perfect, I'd probably have a real job. But I work for the government. So I get suggestions. And you know, the suggestion about attacking the EB5 center, the math error, came from the EB5 regional center operators. And we were just lucky that we jumped on it, and the board was ready to go and said, that's wrong. What they're doing is wrong. Our senators, our assembly members, they came together, and I had a meeting with the governor's office this past week, and they said, oh my God, you turned our office upside down with that. And I said, I'm glad I did, because we need to save this program for our county and others. And that's what we're paying you for. You get paid a lot of money, so does the county workers, so make sure we give a return on the investment to the business community and our taxpayers. That's what we're supposed to do.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Tom.
It's been a pleasure, and I look forward to coming back in another year.
Okay, we'll see where we're at then too.
Hopefully alive.
Yeah. Riverside County is the fastest growing county in the nation and the 4th largest in the state of California, and is home to 58 regional centers. As Commissioner of Foreign Trade for the county, Tom advocates the EB5 program as a means of creating jobs and bringing foreign direct investment to the region to ensure its continued growth. We hope you found this webcast helpful. Be sure to tune in September 11th when our guest will be Securities Attorney Michael Homeyer. We'd like to thank all of our viewers and those who participated in our live webcast, along with today's program sponsor, the Alltech Media Group. I'm Aimee Rios, and I want to thank you for watching EB5 Investment Reports Dialogue Series.
The following presentation was made possible by the Alltech Media Group, a Southern California multimedia company providing exponential branding and marketing services to all their clients. The Alltech Media Group understands the value of the 3W strategy, providing their clients proven, trackable results. Let us make it easy for you to grow your business. Visit alltechmedia.com.